I'm Michael,
And I'm Drew.
and this is the Outward Realms podcast, and we are back. In this episode, we're going to be talking about the swarms of the Hexagota, the three swarm genotypes that I have created for people to help make their armies their own. But before we get to that, I'm going to bring up the big ACTA. We keep talking about it, and it continues to be made. We are the art team and design team are really hard at work getting this ready. We are going to Kickstarter it this year, and we're trying to do it in the next between 3 and 5 months. So that is the goal, to have that Kickstarter brought in. And similar to the Outward Realms Kickstarter, it will come on up. It will, but unlike that one, it will have unlockable rewards, something we learned to add. In fact, there are going to be fleets which are unlocked.
Whoa, like
Yeah.
a new faction, or just like
How
you
about
get a
how about
whole
3 new factions?
3 new factions?
Yes.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
All right.
But we're going to have to hit those numbers to be able to manufacture them and create them. So we'll
Got
need
it.
people to push that button when the time comes. So you heard it here first. Right off the bat, boom, hitting people with the big energy.
I love
Then
it.
we've also got, so ACTA is going along great. When we drop the next update for it, which continues to be delayed, the
Yep.
intent had been originally to have Batra and then the new updated rule pack. I think it'll be something different. We might drop 2 factions. Neither one of them will be Batra, and we'll double the number of factions in the TTS module.
Sure.
We'll add those to the rules pack and get people publicly playing them. So it won't be secret what these factions are, obviously, because they'll be in the public rules, right?
Yep.
There won't be any lore or anything for them, but there's just at least you'll know their names and the names
Not
of the
yet.
ships and the weapons.
Yep.
Oh, there's
Yep.
lore, but that's for the main rule book when that comes out.
Absolutely.
Speaking of big rule books coming out full of lore, we just dropped the public review copy of the Outward Realms core book. And if you're hearing this podcast, you would probably be on the very tail end or past the window to publicly review it, which means it's already on its way to the printers.
Yep.
So if you're not on our Discord and you're not doing the thing, you missed out.
Yep.
But the rules are still there for downloading. And the only thing changing between that and the proof are spelling errors, duplicate text, that sort of thing.
Yep.
The rules are staying. Everything else is great.
And that's in the announcement section, because there were some people that I was talking with on the Discord who were like, "Wait, things changed," and it was like, "Bro, come on, man! Here, let me move the rock that you've been living under, right? Like, there it is. It's right there, exactly."
So I hope that everyone goes and grabs that. I think that the feedback has been really positive about the changes that got made.
Oh yeah.
So I'm really pleased with that. Even our most diehards in their factions are like, you know what? Okay, I'm on board. So that's great.
That's what we want.
Last but not least, the following 2 things are very important. Best in Tabletop Network. We are part of it. We're part of their expanded channel. This is where non-40K is going to live. So in the future, you are going to see things like AOS, Marvel Crisis Protocol, and of course, Outward Realms. But we were the first. We're here. We're forging the path. We're forging the path. But if you like 40K, and a lot of us do, then you can also go to their main feed, and they have Best in Faction Next Generation, and 40K Fight Club, Frontiers, Trophy Triumphs, and Colin's interview show. I can't remember the name of it. I'm sorry, Colin. But he's a great interviewer, and I really like his style. It's let's talk about one particular thing about their life, and then they do like a 20-minute lightning round about something really off the wall. So
cool.
But to get access to the best parts of those shows, you do need to click that subscribe button. I think it's $10 a month. And it gets you all the videos. They're literally producing something every single day at this point.
Wow. Every day they've got new content, huh?
Pretty much.
That's freaking awesome.
If it's not every day, it's almost every day of the week.
Got it. Okay.
I think if you would fold us in there, it pretty much is. So there's something coming out all the time, and it's really great 40K content.
Absolutely.
And of course us. And more to come in the future. It is only growing. And in relation to that, we have KublaCon, which is our big event.
Yes.
If you have any reason on Memorial Day weekend to go do awesome stuff and you're not already going, go. And we have the Outward Realms booth there, which people have seen pictures of in the, where we're going to go do the thing. On top of that, on Saturday, we have the Outward Realms tournament. We have 8 slots. It's like a third full now, roundabouts.
Okay.
And it is a free tournament with prize support, and you don't even need an army. If you just want to play Outward Realms, you can sign up, and we will have painted armies there for you.
Dude, that is, and I gotta be honest with you, out of all of the tabletop games that I've ever played, this is like a first for me to see that like you can literally show up and like play with an entire army, right? Like, GW kind of has like that intro where it's like, here's a starter set and like you get to play. Nah, dude, like you can come down and like, here's the thing, we're using the new rules, obviously, right? With the book that just dropped. So a lot of us going there are going to be playing these rules for the first time. So anyone that wants to show up and play with a new army, pick your favorite one out of the 4 that we currently have, right?
First come, first serve.
First come, first serve, of course. And then just come and learn. It's so simple. It's like I like to call it a better version of 40K, right?
How about we'll call it a faster version?
A faster version, and it's way more. I love it.
There's no alpha strike. There's no spamming problems. There's a lot of the things that they kind of deal with on their end. We didn't have to interact with, which is nice.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the best parts about it is like you actually get to play a game, whereas opposed to like I was very used to up until playing OR, putting models on a table and then literally picking them up.
Yeah.
Not anymore. Not with Outward Realms.
No. So well, thank you for that. So
Absolutely.
And we're also, I want to mention that I'm very, very hard at work and I think I'm gonna be able to pull this off. We have 4 tables, so it's 8 slots open for the event.
Okay.
And each table will be unique.
Whoa! Unique with terrain?
Unique, fully themed out. Yeah.
Wow.
We'll have Desert Base, which people saw at LVO. We'll have Industrial Center, which people saw at LVO. We'll have Lava World, which is like a lava
Mustafa system.
Yep. Yeah. Yep. Well, I mean, like a tectonically active, volcanically active. Like think like an Iceland or a Greenland or something.
Absolutely.
That kind of zone. And then it'll probably end up being a forested, like Highland Hills kind of
Dude,
place.
That is super cool. Like the Star Wars Legion players, especially in Star Wars Legion, will also be at KublaCon. They pride themselves on making their tables different. And I really like that this small skirmish game that we've got has
we call it a platoon-sized game.
Platoon.
Skirmish is smaller.
Skirmish is much smaller. You're right. You're absolutely right. Yeah. So the platoon.
We average around 30 models in Army.
Yep. I can't wait to see them, man. I really can't. The terrain
also you don't tend to see skirmish models with giant tanks, right?
This is also very true.
There's not much that's skirmishy about this.
Right? Yep, no, 100%. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, but no, I hear what you're saying. And a lot of when we're pitching it at booths, we'll say like skirmish plus or platoon, right?
Sure.
And it is a platoon, at least in the realm sense. That actually is a realm platoon.
Which is very cool. Yeah. Okay.
So that's cool. All right, so we got all the paying the bills out of the way. As always, you can always pick up Outward Realms stuff at outwardrealms.com. We have a shop. You can smash that button, and we usually ship the same day or the next day. That's where we're at. I always push the Outward Realms Discord. Hop on that Discord. If you want to ask us questions on here, we have a lore channel. And if you get those questions in, you're entered into a raffle. And the favorite question and the randomly picked person with those entries get $25 credits to use on the Outward Realms store every single month. Just for asking cool questions that haven't been asked before. And we get some pretty good ones. So and I like to reward people helping us get that, fill in our lore content. And I like interacting with users, which is nice because we're not a live stream, so they can't just hop in the channel and ask. Right.
Exactly. Yep. No. And even when we do the live streams and stuff, sometimes it's hard to get them. And I love that there's a place that you can ask your question and let it sit there, and we can dig through them, right? Because I assume, as time goes on, especially with ACTA coming out and all these other factions potentially and things going on, the lore questions are just going to add up.
Yeah, and I know people are going to ask, like, when are these going to come to regular OR? They are not anytime soon. I'm being totally honest. We are working on the expansions, which expand the core 4 factions. So double their number of units spread across 2 different expansions is the current plan.
Yep.
So that has to happen first. That's like a year and a half, 2 years, probably total time frame, and then we can look at the greater whole. But this is how we introduce these and let people, fire up their imaginations. And of course, they get to move around and shoot each other with spaceships because spaceships are awesome.
Because a BFG.
Absolutely.
Not the game.
No. Well, I mean,
yeah, that was.
I loved Battlefleet Gothic. There are some things about it that were slow and clunky.
Sure.
This does not have those things. I think that we made fighters faster. I know ship orders and everything are faster.
Sure.
Yeah, there's lots of streamlining. Like, we only have 3 ranges in the game.
Oh wow. Okay.
So you got your defensive, you have your main, and your secondary and your primary.
Sure. So. Yeah, for someone like me, I used to play Armada quite often.
Oh,
okay. I know the game is or Star Wars Armada. For those who don't know, the game has pretty much changed. They had an entire rules rewrite. Literally, they released a card pack of every card made for the game, totally redone. New rules, new everything, which is pretty nuts. And then of course all the FFG and AMG and Asmodee have their own issues. But having said that, I'm really excited that there will be another space combat game with, the ships. I've seen some of the ships you sent them to me for ACTA.
Yeah.
I really like the designs. Thank you. I think the designs are one of the big things that are going to draw people to it. And
I hope so.
The gameplay, like I it's like, oh yeah, I'm sitting here tooting my own horn for OR, but I really like OR's rule set, and I think ACTA is going to be right up there with it.
Thank you. Well then,
So what are we talking about today? What are we doing?
We have the swarm genotypes for the Hexagota.
These guys. A little bit.
Yeah, so of course people can create their own, or they can have offshoots that are genetically similar in terms of like using the same rules.
Sure.
Like if you want to do Crimson Queen but you want green, fine, right? It makes sense.
Sure.
There's going to be queenlings who are derived from that genotype line. That the queenlings choose their own patterns for their swarms, right? And they want them visually distinct on the battlefield, right? So
that's really interesting, actually. That was going to be my question, was if 2 sets of queenlings and their forces were going to work together for whatever reason, or found themselves in the same place at the same time fighting a common enemy.
Yes.
Psychically they're all linked, but yet it's interesting that the queenlings still like that distinction where they can see, right? Like,
it's easy to visualize when you can see your swarm at work, right? If everything was identical, it would be harder to tell at a glance what's happening. Right?
Absolutely. Yep.
So and that is where they're allowed to have some degree of expression, right? The 2 places where they express what they want are that and the composition of their swarms, right?
That is so interesting.
Right, because every queenling is a fully, they're a fully actualized individual. They're just extremely alien.
Yep. They just don't look like everyone else, right?
Right, or use vocalizations for speaking, or or language is actually kind of a weird thing for them because they issue psychic commands and everything. It's more of an instinctual thing, so language is odd. The queens definitely have language, but the queenlings don't really need it, in their opinion, so they don't
really use it all that much, or if
they
at all.
They don't use it at all. Yeah, there's no writing, and they just issue psychic commands, and they have an instinctual access to the psychic database of information that they have.
That is super interesting. I actually just learned the other day that pincher bugs can fly, but like over 90% of them don't, because their wings are really small and their back ends are pretty heavy. But I was like, I read this and I was like, what? I literally read it because I was sitting in my postal vehicle and I saw a fat one fly by and I was like, did that thing just have like a pincer, like literally a pincer stinger thing on it? And I literally had to look it up. I was like, am I going crazy? So very interesting. I love that like realism is also in like OR, right? Like these creatures have the ability to do stuff physically, but their species doesn't really need it, so they kind of don't really use it, but they have access to it just in case, right? So
Skeletor will be back tomorrow with more disturbing facts.
Exactly. No.
Jeez. We're here to make people happy, not terrified.
Not terrified, exactly. Well, we are talking about bugs, though, right? So.
Well, true. And I mean, what would be scarier than winged warriors, right? Like this thing coming down from the sky, shooting little burrowing ammunition at you.
-1 to be shot at because you can't smack them fast enough.
Oh man, and regenerating when you do shoot them.
Yes, exactly.
Oh, it's real bad. It's real bad. If you're a human, if you're Hexagota, it feels normal.
It feels great. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's another day in the office.
So you got your 3 genotypes. You have your Crimson Queen, your Obsidian Swarm, and of course your Harvester.
Yep.
The Harvester is the studio scheme.
I was going to say, how do you say that? Borlog? Borlog. Got it.
Yeah, okay. And that is named after a scientist named Borlog, who because that was the world's name. In OR, the worlds are named after people.
Okay.
And I have this big chart of like, let's say 6 per a house. So
wow.
Yeah. And so that when I reference those, I'm pulling from those like distinctive golden worlds kind of thing.
Sure.
So Borlog was the first big world to fall, and it like really shook the realm pretty hard when it went down.
Of course.
It was a I don't believe in single-use planets. I don't think not a golden world, right? Earth doesn't just do one thing. It doesn't have one biome. It has multiple biomes. That's why we live there.
Yep.
The golden worlds are like Earth-like worlds. That means they have the same thing. There's no there probably are desert planets, but like that's not something the realm would colonize.
Yes,
like
exactly.
A golden world. I mean, they might put a mining facility there or refineries. Like there's reasons to be there. Yep. There are not reasons to turn those into fully inhabited billion inhabitant planets, right?
100%.
So, but I will say that that Borlog had very nitrogen-rich soil, very favorable growing climate for like lots of arable land,
biomass, as you will.
Yeah, and so
vegetation and all that.
Well, I mean, good for growing human crops.
Oh, okay.
And so it was growing a lot of crops. And crops are used 2 ways in Outward Realms for the realm. The actual, cherries, berries, corn, oranges, all that can be preserved, and those are not unless you live there, not a delicacy, but like more expensive, hard to get, right? Especially if it's transported from one place to another.
Absolutely.
It's like it's more expensive. It's the fruit in Japan kind of principle, right? Fruit in Japan is very expensive, right?
Yep.
Well, some fruit is. And then but a majority of it is put into processors and then turned into bio-based blocks. So
interesting. For
these
eating,
are no, to be put into fabricators to be made into food.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So a bio-based block is a fabricator is it's a molecular level 3D printer. It's like a really slow. It's fast, but faster than our 3D printers. But it's like a molecular 3D printer essentially.
Okay.
And that is the core of making stuff in the realm. The realm makes things conventional ways, but most stuff is made by fabricators.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so but you have to give it base blocks. It needs materials.
Yep.
So if you're trying to build an atomic battery, you'd have to put in, some ore base blocks of the correct ores. and then also an atomic base block or radioactives, so that it can build the atomic battery for you, right? It needs radioactive material, it needs the metals and all that stuff. Same thing for food. So these bio blocks are like balanced. Technically speaking, I mean, you wouldn't want to, and it would be pretty unhealthy.
Right.
You could take a bite off the corner, and it would technically be edible, right? Because it's carbohydrates, it's sugars, it's fiber,
proteins, exactly.
All this stuff, right? But it's all mixed together in an even lattice. So but they put that in together, and they pull from those bio blocks. They pull stuff so that you can have your pork cutlet, right, or whatever you want to eat.
Yep. I believe what we're looking for specifically is Earl Grey tea, hot.
Right.
Yep.
If you want your Earl Grey tea, although actually delicate things require more esoteric materials, are harder to get, and when fabricators run low on materials or start breaking down because they need a lot of maintenance, those are the first things that, complex aromatics and everything, all that stuff drops first, and it gets more and more basic. So if your fabricator is not in terrific shape, like we're running the Outward Realms role-playing game right now as a playtest and a fun, like, hey, let's play role-playing.
Sure.
On their ship, the Elgin East, their fabricator is operating about 70% efficiency because it's not super well maintained, and the crew complains a lot that they can't get like fancier things out of it.
I see. So it's kind of like the it's all the memes with like the Wi-Fi where you have like full Wi-Fi that's Brendan Fraser and from The Mummy, and then like it goes down one bar and suddenly you're Tom Cruise from the remake, right? And you're like, that's not what I want. Like, I want the best stuff, right? Like,
at some point we were talking about the Harvester Borlaug. So
yes,
the Harvester came in and took this world really rapidly. And it was a huge shock to the realm, and it hurt the realm because they lost all those bio blocks, right? They had to replace that, and it was a bad hit. And that genotype was green colored, and so they were called the Harvester.
Got it.
That was the sensationalist name given to them.
The scheme, that's where the scheme comes from too, I suppose, right? Because like all those blocks, and it's the same thing when you're looking at like a mashed plate of food.
Yeah,
it doesn't really look like it doesn't look appealing, right? But when you eat it, the flavors, the taste, like it's all there, right? So it's like,
they got these. The Harvester came in, and they were for the most part, they're very straightforward. Hexagota. Like if you're looking for something close to the original genotype, that's them, right?
Cool.
They use combined arms. They enjoy melee. They come in like a swarm. They use swarming tactics. They're known as, like, the realm sees them as the common original genotype, and that the other things that have come off of them are variations or offshoots that are responses to current pressure.
Interesting. So does that mean that the Hex like feel things also? Like if you were fighting a single warrior and you cut his arm off, would he like stall and move back and be like, "Ah!" Like my arm, and then he'd come back and attack you?
It depends on the genotype, right?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's more of a behavioral thing. The individual, so the pain response is not the same as what we consider pain.
Okay.
Pain for us is a warning in order for us to take action.
Got it. Yep.
For them, they are going to take their action regardless. So pain for them is a register of effect, not a debilitative change of behavior.
Okay.
Because especially in the limbs, right? Like their core is more delicate. Delicate is a
relative term.
Relative term, right?
Yep.
But like considering that they can replace a fallen limb, they barely even notice that, right?
Interesting. I didn't know that they could replace limbs.
Yeah, so basically, as long as they're all genetically compatible, so they can cut off the blood and nerves to a limb at will, and drop it off and put another one on, and that's it's their limited form of organic technology.
Sure.
Right. So like a warrior could remove its claw-like gun arms and put on like digger shovels if they wanted to dig. Although workers are more for that, but if you needed in a pinch you could do that.
Right. Well, workers also have the pen and paper arms that they put on, so they're like, yes, we got
those
the
little tiny delicate things.
Right, they have like there's one little worker swarm or unit of 3 worker swarms that are all like they've got glasses and like walking around. They're managers, like, oh, this needs to be better, right? Like, I'm just kidding. I'm sorry. Going off on the
Lots
joke.
of clipboards.
Clipboards. There we go. That's what I was thinking of. Clipboards and little
little construction.
I'm gonna green stuff. I'm gonna talk to Steve. We'll 3D print some for my workers.
Oh no!
Amazing.
No.
Oh yes. Oh, anyway, sorry. Continue.
OSHA swarm is here. So we've got your harvester, and then you have your Crimson Queen. So that the primary genotype of that is red. They're very ranged oriented.
Yes.
It's reflected in the rules. They like to hang back. They like to use their range. They don't sacrifice their swarms as readily. They're more cautious, right? And that's shown in the rules. And basically, that seems to be a response to things with ranged combat, right? So they're like, oh, these people have lots of shooting. Let's hang back and use our shooting to weaken them first. And the strangest is the Obsidian Swarm. They're jet black, with the little nodules that are on the models. Like those could be like green, blue, red, like an interesting color, and then some metal infused attack limbs and teeth. Right?
Dang! I was gonna say the paint scheme looks really cool from the ones that I've seen. Yeah.
Thank you. And they're the ones that are using psychology, right? They're the ones who are using terror tactics, right? They think that a scared, tired, weakened enemy is easier to defeat, and they're not always wrong about that. And so they're doing lots of they're the ones that have figured out that emotion and psychology and morale is a factor. And if they can degrade those things, because they don't suffer from them, but if they can degrade them, it makes it easier to win, right?
Right. I'm just picturing an army of them walking up, and they all have glasses and ties, and they all have what is it? The seats that you sit down on for like therapy, and they're like, "Oh my God, they're gonna look into our psyche, right? Like, run away." I love it. That's really cool though, and they look the part too, right? Like it's I think there was a story that I read that was in the core book. About how they like as you were saying, shadow tactics, right? And like they're black, and if being at night and like they're hard to see, that sort of thing. It's like you can really use like that. Psychology is definitely a sign of a way of you doing warfare.
Well,
right?
And it shows that over time. So they're the newest genotype to come out, and it shows that over time they're adjusting to what they're encountering. Right?
Yes,
the queens get data back, and they're starting to learn and change. Mm-hmm. And these genotypes they're multifaceted in importance because they are different approaches for tackling problems. They represent evolutionary branches. They are like a way to make sure they don't become homogenous, right?
Okay. Yeah.
Because if they were all the same and something was able to easily defeat them, then they all lose really fast.
Yep. So, was it sharks have that similar thing too? If they smell shark blood, they'll all stay away from that area because if it can kill one of them, it can kill lots of them. It's like, oh,
if it bleeds, it can die.
If it bleeds, we can kill it. Exactly.
Right. That's right.
So says the realm against the Batra.
Oh man, like those. The new core rules for them. So
I'm so excited to try it out, dude. I can't wait. Yeah,
it's really fun. All right, so those are the genotypes, and let's go ahead and do some listener questions. A little lighter this month, so come on, get it together, everybody. You have the core rules now. Lots of questions. Let's go. And this is the first month where we have some doubles. And it's not really their fault. There was a lot of information in the lore channel. People just didn't see it. I'm going to give those people an entry anyway because they asked the question. I don't think they saw the previous questions. So you'll get your credit.
Absolutely.
Okay, so Finch of Fortune. This was not really a question per se, but there's a question buried in here, which I thought was interesting.
Sure.
And they said they're planning on running their realm as deserters, pirates seeking plunder, soldiers who have gone heavy on the implants. Already, augments have a lot of implants, but that's okay.
Yeah, I was going to say, wait a minute, what? Okay,
but that's
cool.
okay. No, and I wanted to talk about that because what I see there is, what do augments become those things? And 100%, right?
Yeah.
After they end their military service, I mean, people change if the loyalty to the unit becomes stronger than the loyalty to the realm itself, right? And the realm knows that augments don't have a lot that they're permanently changed by the procedure, and they need work, they need opportunity. There's a reason that when you stop being an augment, you keep your armor and your gun, right? So
Sure.
they know. They're very aware. They tell you not to use the coloration and heraldry. They change your friendly ID tag, but like you're gonna go, right? And they know that a lot of retired realm augments are still superior to conventional human forces, and so they'll be used, in security roles. They'll be used in a variety of ways.
Yeah,
Policing.
Yep. They're still like, they don't have nothing. They don't have anything to do when they're done with their service.
You need to work,
they're still,
right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right, and it's because every suit of augment armor is bespoke to that particular user. They can't reuse it, so and mag rifles are a dime a dozen. They have a lot of those.
Right.
Gatling mags. So they're just like, here, have your Gatling mag.
It's so cool. You just put it up on the wall, like, oh yeah, I've killed 1 million hex with this thing back in the day, and then it's like, oh yeah, the hex are coming. Oh, there I go killing again, right? Like, pull it off the wall.
I am needed once more.
Yes, exactly.
So Water Grunt says their army's still being built, but they want them to be offshoots of the rich and nobles. And that's, definitely you could have, I would think, like a charterless house. Having the nobility required to send their firstborn or send one of their children into augment service, probably their firstborn, because, make sure you get one, as a condition of their nobility is actually kind of an interesting thing. And because augments can't be part of realm government, but they can be part of their government, so they could have, maybe all their nobles were augments.
Wow. Yeah, of course.
So that's totally plausible, and I think that's a very interesting way to make it your own. Amaru asks, I'm imagining something. Oh, in reference to that, something like Snords Irregulars or Black Widow Battalion from BattleTech, units that are part of a larger faction that splintered off. Not a question per se, but A, they brought up BattleTech, which I love, but B, they also brought up something interesting, which is to say, those realm units can fractionalize, right? You could have units that break apart and go do their thing. Something that happens in a military when it becomes spread apart and doesn't have real-time communication is you need very strong command. And this is a tendency that doesn't happen in like some militaries here. I mean, not as much here, right? Because we're close together. But if you're months or a year or years away from getting any kind of response, you need strong commanders that are always obeyed. The loyalty then starts to move to the commander. And if the commander goes off reservation, then they get,
Yep. Then
they have the unit, because the loyalty transfers from the overall to the commander.
You have a new chain of command, essentially.
Correct.
Right. Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. And so that's something the realm does deal with, just because, they need strong command, because you can't ask for help real time.
Yes.
So you need people who can make real decisions fast and be obeyed. So Corvid asks, what is each faction's internal response to meeting the others? Yeah, like that's a huge question.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Yeah, we talked about the Realm and the Batra with the battle for Konev. That was their first encounter with one another. The Batra encountered the Nightfall first, as far as alien races go, and that they began their systematic campaign of extermination on that, right? And the Batra ran into the Hex the same time everyone else ran into them when they just appeared and started attacking worlds. They were included in that.
I was just about to ask you if the Batra were, because I had originally thought that it was just the realm.
They did the Batra as well.
Dang, they did the Batra dirty. What the?
Yeah, well, they were going after those worlds, right? And they recognized them as a threat. Although the Batra do take up less space, and there are fewer worlds to attack, but they were attacked as well. And obviously, the terraforming. They land, they establish a beachhead, and they start making it a methane atmosphere.
Yep.
No part of Batra is going to be on board with that.
Yep, absolutely.
Right. And so by doing that, you've got your realm versus the Hex when they appeared and just suddenly attacked everyone. Their feelings on that are pretty clear.
Yep.
And then as well, the realm encountered the Nightfall first as well, but were somewhat fortunate in their first encounter being some Warden units that were on a world. So there was no mind nearby. They weren't as coordinated. They weren't as strong. So they recognized that this was a thing. But they underestimated it because they're like, oh, maybe this was a piece of a prior civilization, although they didn't see any cities or anything. Like, the ruins didn't make sense. Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
But they were aware of them to some extent, defeated that, took that world. However, when the next time they ran into them, it was a mind invading that world.
It was a full-on,
a much more dangerous, much more escalated encounter. But they're like, it wasn't like, oh, this is the first time we're seeing them. This was like, oh, these are the same things that we saw halfway across the galaxy. So this must be a much bigger thing, right?
Yep.
And that was actually in the Unification Wars. That was before the Realm.
Yeah, before the Realm became the Realm. Yep. I was just about to ask that. I was like, wait a minute, isn't that before?
Okay. Yeah, that was in the Unification Wars. So we have Corvid as a follow-up. Are there any breakaway Batra clans like Unbound for the Realm? Sub-clans can become pretty divergent, right? They can kind of break away. They can do their own thing, become very isolated, very private. But that's about the biggest chunk that would do it. Clutches for sure. If the Clutch agrees that this is the right thing to do, they could go off and be their own thing, 100%.
I was gonna say it sounds like it's the very similar. Like I have more love and like determination to stay with my clanmates rather than like the Batra faction.
Well, and the thing is,
species as a whole.
Every Clutch has their own way of making decisions, right?
Yes.
Some clutches choose a strong leader. Some clutches choose a few people. Some clutches all vote. It's sort of what they want. It's their family culture.
Got it.
Right? And so if their family votes a particular way, they'll bend that way. Speedy Gold 79 says, what fuel source is used to power each faction's vehicles and spacefaring ships? It's the same for 3 of them. The Nightfall, no one knows. So if they use an inertialess drive, I mean, I know, but like no one outside knows, right?
It's anger.
Yeah, it's mostly
rage. Pure anger.
It's liquefied rage.
Yep.
No, we already have that. It's called Slam. And so the other 3 are using something I've been calling exotic fuel.
Okay.
Which is like which is a heavy, a hyper dense material that you can only that you can't manufacture inside of a gravity well, so it can only be made in space. And it is, you basically have to be making it away from massive gravity, right? Like a planet. A moon would probably be okay, but not a large planet, because you're basically, this hyperdense, it's very volatile, hyperdense material, and you have to create it in pretty specific locations inside a star system if you're trying to do it. And it is very hard to set up, very hard to get going. So these refineries, these exotic fuel refineries, are like really well protected, well guarded, important strategic resources. The Hexagota, theirs are the crudest because they they derived their technology from the realm.
Reverse engineered it, right?
Yeah, right. And so theirs is extremely crude. However, because these are really dangerous to work on. It's hard to make this stuff, and there's a lot of radiation involved. So a big part of that is protecting people from all this radiation, you know. And so, but the Hex don't care. They're very radiation resistant, and so they don't need as much shielding, so they can take away a lot of the protections and everything and just kind of get to it. So they actually make quite a bit of it. It's lower quality, as it were, but they have a lot of ships to fuel. So
interesting. So my question was, they reverse engineered it, but they used a different fuel source, or is it the same fuel source?
It's just like they didn't know what a exotic fuel refinery was supposed to look like, but they knew they needed that material, and they knew the means in which to get it
and how to get it.
They built the first thing that got them there, and they don't care that it's like highly radioactive and dangerous, because if they lose one, they'll build two more. Right.
Yep. Exactly. They have the workforce to
they have a sacrificial in a sense, right? Like it's not a big deal to lose a space station full of workers and warriors. Like, they don't care. I mean, they care because it's energy loss. They care because it's
right, but it's not.
It's not. There's no emotional attachment to any of it.
Yep.
So, and then the Batra, I call them the Generation 2 engines. They're pretty good. They actually, but again, one of their limiting factors is the fact that they do take very careful care of their people. So their stations are much safer, but at, harder to build, harder to create.
Yep.
And then, of course, the realm is somewhere in between, right? They have they're, medium danger, but Gen 3, so their engines are more efficient, and, there you go. They use less fuel. But we call it exotic matter. What exotic matter is, I don't know. I just know that you need to create a wormhole using the methodology. I mean, you need hyper-dense matter. And the paper actually said exotic matter. So I just said it was exotic matter. Why not, right? It doesn't actually exist in normal physics, but I needed a way to punch a hole in time-space. We're already bending a lot of the rules here. So
yeah, exactly, right?
And in the campaign, hasn't had any real progress pushed on it since we first started. I'd say it's about 50% written. One of the strategic points on the campaign grid that can come up is exotic matter fuel refinery. Right?
Wow. Okay.
So that was like something important that a star system could have in it. All right.
Cool.
And we have the last question for this episode, which is power extractions, vehicles and ships. And Corvid asked the same thing. What do they use for fuel for ships? Actually, instead of answering that same question, I will add that they use atomic batteries on the ships for power as well. So they store a lot of power there and then use that for power generation. Fusion reactors as well. And then inside day-to-day devices, almost like if it's over a certain size, they all use atomic batteries.
Okay.
So an atomic battery is like a little battery, you put it inside, and the battery lasts for years. And they fail safe. So when you're done, you can go ahead and put it inside of any fabricator, and it will be safely disposed of. In terms of the role-playing game, if it's powered by an atomic battery, you never need to really worry about it unless it's a plot point.
Sure, right? Unless there's like something that has to, it's a part of the story, right?
I mean, if you got a really critical failure, as a cool thing, you could say the atomic battery is depleted unexpectedly, right?
Sure, but like that's also not right. Like, okay.
Yeah. Just as a fun thing for the GM, like, oh man, like I really needed this thing to work, and I got a critical failure, and the GM's like, well, now it's dead. And you're like, the atomic battery went out? That almost never happens. What are the odds?
Oh, what are they? Yeah, right. Exactly. That happens a lot in D&D that I'm not a big fan of, right? Where it's like, oh, this happens to us, but no one else?
Right.
Like, come on.
This almost never happens except when it's convenient.
No, 100%. 100%.
So, and that's going to be this episode. So, do you have anything for us?
I have one more question.
Yeah, please.
My question to you is: do the Hexagota, when encountering the realm, when encountering the Batra, do they kill everything? They leave no survivors. Are there ever a chance where they've come across a town and there's like kids and like women that are like hiding and like very clearly they're not a threat? And like, does the Queenling be like, "I will spare you," or is it just like your food, or you can be made into stuff?
Yeah, they're not eating them.
Right.
So here's the thing they do. When they come to a world, they establish a bunch of strongholds.
Yes.
And those are their terraforming spires. They start to build those. Those are very energy intensive. They're hard to make.
Yep.
Because they want to start converting that planet.
Right.
And then also they will go grab strategic areas that are high value for them, right?
Okay.
So things for food and energy.
Yep.
But if they're going to attack a place, they're not hunting down each individual person individually. As soon as they detect you, they will get you. If they're taking over a town, it's because they need something in that town.
Yes, exactly.
Right. But they're not specifically hunting down people. They just see us as an impediment, a competing predator, but we're not, they're not malicious per se. I mean, what they're doing sucks for us.
Right.
But they don't, it would be the exact same strategy if we were there or if we weren't there. There's just fighting because we're there.
Exactly. No, and I apologize for like wording my question in that way.
No. Well, here's a better way of here's what I would say.
Sure.
I would say is if they were pulling back, and like let's say there was like some sort of strategic retreat, and they're pulling all these people back, and they're trying to get into the spaceport and get them off there. Well, the Hexagota chase them down. They'll only do that if they think the soldiers are something that are going to be a problem later or need to die.
Okay.
But
all right,
you can get away, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Now the Obsidian Swarm may treat it differently. They may harass you the whole time because they want just in case this is a ruse, right? Like they'll harass you the whole time and weaken you the whole time because what if this is just you pulling back as a strategic retreat so you can regroup and then come back to them again?
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
But the Crimson Swarm might just pepper you with shots for a while and then pull back. The Harvester may chase you out of town and then stop. Right? They don't want it. They were going to protect their resource they took.
They're not gonna get away from the thing that they want to hunt, to like again be malicious, right? Like because their goal was to get the thing, and if you're gone, they'll go back and take it.
And queens can also feel things, and sort of like we do, right? In different ways. So if you really damage that queen, or they have a vendetta against you in particular, or your unit in particular, maybe they go after you a little harder because they remember that you hurt them, right? But for the most part, they'll follow their genotype's behaviors. So
interesting. Cool. Well, thank you for that.
Yeah, you're welcome. All right. We're going to call this one a close, and we'll see you all next time.
Have a good one.
Bye-bye.